The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to the show, brought to you with Levi Solicitors. 10% off your legal fees, levisolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. Dan, Michael and Moscow here. We are previewing Manchester United now at home on Sunday. Gritted teeth there, Michael. If you're on the audio version, you won't see that. If you're on the video, you don't look convinced by this. I was saying, was it on propaganda? I was saying, like, expectations being lowered so far now because of the game against Everton. That whatever.
I'm hugely looking forward to it, I have to say.
What, for the toxic atmosphere?
Yeah. Great, and it makes you feel alive, that sort of stuff. It's going to be absolutely awful. So I'm looking forward to that. But the game itself, could probably do without.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Like, I sort of fully expect us to get pumped and them to turn into prime Brazil because they've been crap under Rangnick. They've been just really indifferent, haven't they? But
when did he take over? Was it after the Watford game? They lost 4-1 at Watford.
Yeah, I think that was probably it. You can't lose 4-1 at Watford, can you?
No, I think they maybe limped on a little while. Maybe it was the Chelsea one, but anyway. But yeah, they are horrible. They're terrible. What a dreadful team. They've lost 2 in how many games is that I'm looking at?
Yeah, they've drawn loads, haven't they?
But
I think that's the thing. They're still really unhappy with it. I know, but this Rangnick, as Webby and O'Neill call him, this problem with this Rangnick.
6, 7, 8. Since losing to Watford, they've won 7. I just counted. I can't remember. They've won 8 games and they've only lost 2.
That's in 16.
Apparently, this is terrible.
We're talking about Manchester United Football Club.
Manchester United.
This is Manchester United Football Club.
I mean, you talk about entitlement.
It's Manchester United.
Exactly.
It's a football club.
One of the worst aspects of this is
it's a football club.
Is going to be
in Manchester.
Premier League Twitter, isn't it? You know, all of the horrible fanboys.
Really easy solution to that. Just
turn it off. Yeah.
Don't look at it.
But it's funny, isn't it? Like in the wake of the Everton game, I did nothing but doom scroll for like 2 days. I promised myself I divorced myself from it completely. Like, I didn't watch Match of the Day, didn't do any reading of any reports or anything like that. Just like, not having any of it, but still doom scrolled for
the
2 days.
Absolute worst version.
Yeah. And I'm sat there thinking, why am I doing this to myself? Just put it down. But I don't know. I guess I'm hoping for something to make me feel better. But
you won't find it there.
Didn't really work. No. But yeah, that was 16 games, by the way, Moscow. They've lost 2 in 16, but yeah, a lot of draws in there.
But won 8.
Yeah.
And that's more than we've won all season.
Yeah.
And they're terrible. This Rangnick guy, they need him out as soon as possible because this isn't good enough.
Although, isn't it funny, though, because there is kind of this little narrative emerging that, like, his methods are too old school and the players don't buy into it. There's something not quite right there.
Yeah, all the players are horrible bastards.
Yeah, but they are
not even just the ones that are, under police investigation, or should be.
But they are a shadow of the club that they used to be.
Yeah,
which is funny, isn't it, to a certain extent.
The goal that Burnley scored against them, I mean, we heard on propaganda the guy talking about Slabby Maguire, but yeah, that was brought about. They let that it's Weghorst, the new 6'6" striker, do like a full Cruyff, which it wasn't. It was a pathetic little turn, but it was still enough to send Harry Maguire just galloping into Scott McTominay, knocking the 2 of them to the ground. And it's great how somebody who can be £80 million worth of transfer fee, England international, probably, I mean, at Leicester, you're talking about him and Van Dijk as the 2 best defenders in the world. And Manchester United, circa 2022, somehow manages to turn him into... I don't think I've ever seen Liam Cooper do anything that bad. And I've seen Liam Cooper do loads of terrible things.
But he has turned into the sort of pre-Bielsa Liam Cooper, hasn't he?
That's great.
And physical comedy.
And when you look through the managers, Solskjaer and then Rangnick, I don't know, was he there before? He wasn't he, before Solskjaer?
Who was?
Maguire. Was he? Has he been there that long?
God, I can't remember.
But you start to think it's not the influence of the coaches that are doing this to him. So who else is it? It's got to be the players. So what's coming out at the moment where the players want Pochettino next season, it's a dangerous line, because if you're just indulging them even more, that's not going to end up with good results.
They signed him in the summer of 2019. He feels like he's been there a lot longer, but yeah, it's only 3 years.
Player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was named club captain. I'm sure he'll score from a corner now anyway.
I mean, the thing is, they probably will beat us. Their season as a whole, though, it's weird because over summer the Glazers need to spend money. We need to invest in it.
The most expensive squad ever assembled.
And they bought Varane, who was meant to solve their defence. They got Sancho, who they've been after for like 18 months for the wing, and they got Ronaldo, who the best player in the world, is going to change the culture of the club, all this sort of stuff.
And he has, arguably, but just not necessarily in the way they thought.
Yes, potentially he has brought something to the dressing room, but none of that has worked, essentially. They're exactly the same team as they were before, only maybe slightly worse, and with a highly paid narcissist up front, and that's the kindest thing I can say about him.
And it's the best thing legally, I think, as well.
Yes. So that's been kind of enjoyable. It doesn't change the fact that I can imagine Ronaldo scoring on the weekend.
I mean, if he does that Sue thing in front of our cop, I just fear for what might happen. And don't get your phones out. That's all I'll say.
I mean, truthfully, nor do I care what happens if he does it in front of the cop.
They'll take him out in a bag.
It's one of those that you think, well, you're on your own, really. I'm sure if he would be ill-advised for him to do that.
I would say that for the sake of our Premier League survival, whatever happens needs to be on the right side of a points deduction, doesn't it? That's got to be borne in mind as we're risk assessing what may happen.
In a football sense, there is actually a fascinating matchup here in that we've seen that great big chasm, that void that we tend to vacate in the middle of the pitch, and they seemingly play quite narrow. There's talk of some batshit mental 4-2-2-2-2-2-2-2-2 formation or whatever it is.
That's too many players.
Shit, I've lost count. And we play obviously very, very wide and high. So how will that play out, do you think?
With a Leeds United win.
It'll play out in the same way as it did in the game at Old Trafford, probably, with Pogba and Fernandes doing exactly as they want through that midfield. It
does feel like there's a beautiful element of chaos about this game, though, doesn't it? Like there's a lingering, unknowable chaos just lurking somewhere.
Yeah, there is. If we start with the same team,
which we won't, surely.
Would it surprise you?
Yes, it would, because I think he spoke about his error with Forshaw.
Bill have been just talking to Click all week in training, going, "You just need to do this.
You can do this.
You can do. I'm going to tell you now what to do, and then you go on Saturday, on Sunday, you can go and do it." And he'll be like, "Oh,
you cannot leave Mateus Click to pick up Bruno Fernandes." That is what I am saying. It won't. That will not happen.
McTominay.
So you're saying we should start Tyler Roberts?
Yes, in the deep lying midfield role.
I think we've not seen him play it yet, have we?
No, give him a go.
Yeah, I think Forshaw has to start.
Yes.
And Click, probably. I would try and play more midfield in midfield, is what I would like in this. And I wouldn't mind seeing Rodrigo up front either, to be honest.
Because they're going to be one up front, more than likely, it will mean that two at the back, and it means that the player picking up Fernandes is more likely to be Cock or Struijk, isn't it? So we'll probably have a defender there. And then there is the temptation that Click stays because he's further forward, being more attacking and not being relied on.
You can actually almost, because they play two sort of holding players, you could almost argue for having two slightly more advanced players, can you?
To force them back, so try to make Pogba's...
We're talking about tactics here.
Pogba's got to worry about Click more than Click's got to worry about Pogba, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm not confident in that. I would think Forshaw just makes us play better. Even the second half against Everton, it wasn't better, but we weren't worse. I think we heard those Everton fans sort of saying that we kept playing our football to the end, and you could see it just kept breaking down exactly the same ways. But Forshaw did have the get the ball, pass the ball business that was completely absent from the first half. So I would rather see Forshaw ahead of. It'll probably be Koch in midfield because we like Struijk and Llorente as defenders at the moment, and then maybe it's Click ahead of Forshaw.
I think he'll play Rodrigo because he wants to and he has to.
Well, the value then of Daniel James running at Harry Maguire is not to be sniffed at, is it? So him staying as a striker, because I don't know if Daniel James is really droppable at the moment because of how he's been playing. So if you're keeping him in the team, are you putting Rafinha on the bench because he's saying the game and a half against Villa and Everton weren't good enough?
No, I think Click will make way. I think Click makes way here, almost certainly. But we'll see. We'll see. I think this is the thing, right, with this game, that when we're good, we're far better than the sum of our parts. That's what Bielsa does. My fear with this game is that, and as we found in the games against them over the last couple of years, is that they're just better all round on an individual basis. And if you can win your individual battles against us, as we saw with Everton when we were breaking that down, was it on Propaganda Moscow? We were saying, like, you know, the number of individuals that were beaten in the run up to their goals. That's what worries me about this game. But
to look more recently as well at the Villa game, that was a game that we were essentially dominant in for the most part, but Coutinho did some really good bits in it, just bits of quality to beat a man, and it completely broke apart the structure we had. And whatever you think of Pogba and Fernandes, and even Man United fans are critical of them to a large extent at the moment, they can still do stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the big risk when you come up against the most expensive football squad that has ever been assembled in history, is that even if as a team generally
those damn Glazers,
it's a horrible mess, one-on-one there's a lot of £100 million footballers in there, and our £100 million footballer is Calvin Phillips, who's injured. So trying to win those battles is difficult, but we got a 0-0 against them last year, and the atmosphere may well be part of it because Newcastle are riding the wave of their home atmosphere with the games that they're winning at home. Everton, we've seen the difference over the last 7 days between them beating Brentford, then us at Goodison Park in an atmosphere that is, you know, everybody's really happy about the new manager and everything that's happening, and then going away to Newcastle and looking absolutely terrible. So hopefully, can we say Leeds fans will be a factor in this, in, you know, sending some of these horrible monsters scuttling away in tears.
It'll be different to what they are used to, I think, in terms of an atmosphere, because they haven't experienced this before, and I'm sure Man United players don't get a fine reception at Anfield and Man City either, but it's something a bit new. We've got a lot of
threat level feels high.
We've got a lot of pent up anger, I feel, over the not playing them for so long in the league. It was an easy introduction from last year at Ellen Road, because it was a fairly meaningless end of season vibe to it, and it was a draw, and
well, it was empty.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing happened, did it? It was a fairly nothing sort of game. No crowd there.
It's funny, isn't it? The parameters for the crowd with this one, they feel quite wide. In that, if things go well, it's going to be amazing. It'll be one of the best days out we've had in many a year, even though that feels unlikely at this stage. But if the wheels do come off during this one, I dread to think what it'll turn out like.
Yeah,
will it be trudging disappointment, or do you think that it starts to turn toxic?
I don't think toxic's necessary, though. That's the thing. Like, being 15th in the Premier League, losing to scum, it's not ideal, but also it's not like anybody's doing anything terrible. If we were 20th, yeah, but sort of lower mid-table as we are, it doesn't feel like there's an excuse for being toxic against Leeds United.
But it's lower mid-table teetering, isn't it? I think it's the teetering. It's what we're on the edge of teetering into that people are worried about. It's the fear manifesting itself in poison. I don't want to see it, but, you know, crowds could potentially turn. Let's put it this way: if it shapes up like the Arsenal game, I feel like it'll be a different reaction to what happened against Arsenal. Yeah,
I think so. I think that's fair to say. In my head, I've been building this weird fast-forwarded 1996 thing all week, where the 3-0 against Everton is like the League Cup final, where it felt like everything was wrong, and then we go and lose to scum, as we did like actually months after, and then we change manager, and it all turns, and it's going to be a weird kind of microcosm of that.
Right.
But it shouldn't happen, should it?
No. The funny thing is, like, again, going back to the themes that we were touching on in propaganda and the nature of the Premier League, is that, like, when I was growing up, I look back to the games during the 90s, like that Christmas Eve game is always held up as an example of just a great Leeds performance where we were dominant. The atmosphere was absolutely bouncing. If you watch that video back, the sound of the crowd and stuff, I don't know. I don't know if it's just a passage of time or the way that the Premier League is now, that the dice are so heavily loaded in favour of the top clubs with the most money, that I struggle to find it that upsetting if we do lose to these. It'll hurt like hell, but I'll probably be able to shut this one out a little bit easier than Everton, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, because we should have beaten Everton, whereas this is part of a...
based on
us just in general.
Yeah, I know.
On the day, they played better, but I mean, going into it, when you look down the fixture list, like, we should beat Everton and lose to scum. It's kind of like the order of the Premier League. So not beating Everton is ostensibly worse than losing to Scum. We're not going to. Would be. But that's the thing, is kind of putting it in its proportion of just, it is the modern Premier League, and is it possible to just write these games off? And if you don't write them off, what are the implications? Because we're talking about, you're likening it to the last days of Wilkinson, which would mean sacking the manager in the end. I know you're not calling for him to be sacked, but we're putting it in that kind of thing. Is you're then letting a result that is so distorted by the Premier League. Like, there's a rationale for sacking Bielsa for Everton, but against the most expensive squad in world football history, you kind of almost go, what did you expect apart from losing to him? And even, they're terrible over the last 3 months. They've won 50% of the games and only lost 2. It's like, that's kind of what you're up against. So I wouldn't like this game or the Man City game as was, or the Liverpool games, either home or away, to be the ones that decide Bielsa's fate or the club's policy, what they decide to do in either direction. Like, if we somehow beat them, I don't think we should be giving Bielsa like a 10-year contract because he's pulled off something incredible.
Nor would he sign it.
No, exactly. You've just got to say, this is it's just a game, and we just have to get through it and see what happens. But attaching too much kind of too much of our future course to the result of this game, I think would be a mistake.
What you're saying there is why I think it probably feels less hurtful than like the Everton game and the Newcastle game, which were the ones that really sort of counted. But even still, taking it on its own,
it's because we're used to. I was going to say it's because we're used to. There was the league title battle. I mean, the period actually when results against Man United were kind of unforgivably shit were O'Leary era, because we never managed to beat them. And we were actually a good side at that point, but we still managed to lose pretty much every week, every time we played him, or scrape the odd draw here and there. Although that disallowed bloody goal, still.
I know.
We did have the one, 14th of September 2002.
That was post, wasn't that Venables back?
Yeah, so that shows how much better he was.
And Harry Kewell scored that goal, so it doesn't even count.
Yeah, true. It's horrible to remember. So,
in summary then, with this one, we expect to lose, I would say, just based on what happened earlier in the season. Yeah, I'm done now with my optimism for this season.
Okay, good.
I just want to get us. I mean, the parameters for this season are just to stay up now. I've realised there's no joy to be gained from any of it. There might be some nice individual moments along the way, but as a whole, it's not a lot of fun. I do just want it over with now. And if there's some fun to be had along the way, let's enjoy it, and let's hope that beyond what the data and our historical knowledge of this season and the way that this is going, let's just hope there's a day in it for us that's fun. You never know, there might be. Probably won't be, but you never know.
We've got to remember, in terms of the fixture list, get through Scum, Liverpool, Tottenham, and then it's Leicester, Norwich, Wolves, Southampton, Watford, and then we've got Chelsea, then Palace, and then City, Arsenal.
So it's that run of games.
That run of games is the one where we need to find the answers and the form. These games, it is, if we get anything out of Scum, Liverpool, Tottenham, great. If we don't, it's just almost like, it's like holding your nose. It's like it's going to stink for the next 3 games, but just try and do what you can to just get through it, and then hope that the next few games will sort the season out. And then it is about getting to
the end.
Getting to the end. And those 3 games, I mean,
bring on the end.
Yeah, because these 3 games next week, and they come very quickly, shouldn't be the ones that dictate the rest of the season. It's the ones after that: Leicester, Norwich, Wolves, Southampton, Watford. If we come out of that having lost them all, then we are in grim situations. If we come out of that having won most of them, then we can go into games against Chelsea and Manchester City and Arsenal towards the end of the season with a little bit more kind of like, we might be able to do something now. So and even if we win these 3 games, well, actually, if we've got 9 points from the next 9 games,
I'll be 3 games,
I'll be delighted about it. But we just got to get through it, haven't we? And then
we've just got to get through it. Welcome to the Premier League.
Bedingfield's. It is Daniel Bedingfield's Premier League. And
there we go.
The rest of us just live in it. And there's always hope.
There is always hope.
Kick off at what time does it kick off? 2 o'clock. Yeah. That's optimistically late from the West Yorkshire Police. I'd have had
2 o'clock?
kicking off at 9 a.m. if they had any real sense about them. But we'll see how it goes. And there are other factors with this one, as we said. Atmosphere. They are horrible as a team, and things can happen beyond systems, tactics, expectations. It's the joy of the game in it. And then after 5 minutes, when we're 2-0 out, very different day.
That does wrap up part 2. The Man United preview, part 3 on the way. Then we'll do heroes and villains.
The Square Ball Podcast.